Okay, Friday live. Let's just wait for some people to come on. I'm just going to do a warm up first. And then I'm just going to answer questions when people do come on. Got no real plan for today. I am going to train handstand push-ups once the stream is finished. So apart from that, no plans training-wise today. I'll be doing probably deficit handstand push-ups. Rosie's here, half asleep. Sun is shining in Perth. We've had quite a bit of rain recently. Probably got blue sky today. It's pretty cold. For Perth, it's pretty cold. Okay, let's warm up. I'll wait for some questions to come in. My intention is to start to go for middle splits again. It's always sort of been that and back bridge as well. Two movements I've sort of played with very, very occasionally. Back bridge way less than middle splits. But I'd really like to get middle splits cold, full splits. That's going to definitely take some work. Let's warm up the handstand. See how that's feeling. First handstand of the day. I feel my wrists a little bit. Not really done any wrist prep apart from what I just done then. As the live started, some wrist rolls. But if your balance is pretty good, you can now enough warm up your wrists in the handstand because you're not searching so much. So you're not going outside of your window and having to really put a lot of pressure on the wrists. So if you're conditioned to handstands, a handstand, a static one, can warm up quite nicely. Hey, how are we? Feel pain in your hip joint when doing handstands, when you're under balance. That's a strange one. The upper body and the upper back and the hips are very well connected in terms of they'll compensate for each other. So if you have shoulder tightness, then your hips will compensate when you're in the handstand. And if you have hip tightness, your shoulders will compensate when you're in the handstand. So they can sort of like play off against each other and try and correct each other. So it could be something like that, or it could just be you're trying to force your body into a position that it doesn't enjoy from a mobility point of view, or restriction, which is the same thing. So yeah, I play around with that, challenge that, do some stretching before it, some like isolated stretching, see if that improves it. Recovering from tendonitis, any recommendations for recovery, strength, restoration? Yeah, just obviously back off on your progressions, on your intensity, on your volume. So all three of those make the progressions much easier than what you were doing, and then slowly increase them. So it's frustrating because we all want to go back to where we were in terms of the intensity and level and volume. But the best way is just to go in very slowly to start with, see how the body responds, and then work back into it. And also just make sure that you've got even more mobility around the area and then head to toe as well, because we definitely compensate. And if our bodies has an itis, which is too much energy stuck, it tends to be a bit more inflamed as well. So if you can reduce inflammation in general throughout the body, so more sleep, drink more water, eat better food, that type of thing, plus create more space through mobility, then that should help. And obviously just don't be pushing the body too hard in terms of overall stress or load on that. Wish you best of luck. Thank you. So I want to thank you for watching your videos of improving range of balance window. Had made me reach 0 seconds to 30 seconds. That's awesome. Yeah, 30 seconds is great. Do 30-second holds, but 10 to 15-second average. Yeah, that's sort of normal. What should the next step? Should I stick to those wall drills? Yeah, I would use the wall drills as your warm up, and then read your handstand on the day. So if you do some back to wall drills, some chest to wall drills, and then practice. Then see what your freestanding is like. If your freestanding feels fantastic, do more freestanding work throughout the session. If the freestanding doesn't feel very good, jump back on the wall and do like a superset, maybe where you go back to wall, chest to wall, then freestanding, or in a big superset. If the freestanding feels good, just spend more time on the freestanding. That's across the board on all the drills. So if you're doing presses, handstand push-ups, the days where your balance doesn't feel that good, just back off the balance demand. Same as if your strength isn't there on a day, work more on mobility and balance. So just sort of ride what you have on the day, because our body does change dramatically day to day. It doesn't always make sense either. In terms of new drills to incorporate, I would do start playing with straddle and tuck handstand. Good morning, Paul. You recently helped me develop crow press to handstand. Awesome. And I wish to perform the eccentric as well as other presses to handstand. I'm very inflexible. So do you have any tips on how to make the straddle pancake much easier? Yeah, straddle pancake is just really two things. So it's the straddle itself plus hamstring flexibility. So normally if you hit those two, you can get away with it. There's a little bit around the glutes and stuff. My pigeon position is pretty tight and I've got a flat pancake. So you can sort of get away with it with hamstring flexibility and then straddle itself. But you just want to be doing stretching when you train and also visiting the position. I chirp on a lot about that, but that made a massive difference. Was mine was just sitting in the position. So like when I was setting up the live stream today, I was sitting on my laptop in the straddle position. So I was sitting in straddle while working on my laptop. So that's just a great example of just spending time in the position, which doesn't count towards your stretching, but it's just extra time. So the more we visit the position, the easier it's going to be. But when you're doing that, just make it much easier. So raise the hips up if you need to. And also hamstring stretching, I would recommend you do that every day, but not intense. So just visiting positions, when you're doing your shoes up, stretch your hamstrings, be in this position when you're doing your shoes up, when you're cleaning your teeth, when you're boiling the kettle, something like that. Just do some easy hamstring stretches. When you pick stuff off the floor, do it straight-legged. So just visit in the positions all the time. That makes a massive difference. And then obviously you're just going to have to use a bit more strength at the moment to do your press handstand. Is there a way to safely program weightlifting and skill-based calisthenics? Just don't go to your like 1 rep max on everything. And that's across the board, whether it's weightlifting and calisthenics. You just want to make sure that you're using basic compound movements. So keep it really simple. Don't do 10 different exercises for handstand push-ups and then 10 different exercises to build your chest when it comes to weightlifting. Do 1 or 2 basic movements for the weightlifting and 1 or 2 basic movements for the calisthenics. Keep it super simple. Most people make it way too complex with multiple exercises, and that's where they just either don't get results because they're just doing too thin across the board, or they just don't stick to it long enough. One of my friends, while doing handstand, has his 1 foot higher than the other. That's just so when you're doing a 1 rep max of anything, whether it's handstands, squats or anything, you'll see imbalances in the body. So once you become better at something, you'll find that the body will sort itself out and hide the imbalances a little bit more. They'll still be there. You just won't see them so much. So it just means that they're pushing their limits at the moment, whether it's flexibility or balance, and then you'll just see the imbalances will come out. I'm having to use so much strength pressing into handstand because of the lack of flexibility. Yeah, that's the only way you're going to be able to press unless you use momentum and sort of jump through the positions. And I wouldn't necessarily see it as a bad thing. It just means that you're just going to have to take that into consideration in terms of the intensity that you're pressing with. You know, I can demonstrate that if people don't understand what I mean by that. Is if I do press handstand. So if I do a flexibility press handstand, so I stack everything, and I'm going to carry on talking when I do it. You can tell that that's not that intense for me because I can hold a conversation as I go through the movement. But if I make it more strength based, and now I have to go into like a planche position and pull myself up, you can tell there that the voice changed as I go through the strength part of the movement. I know what I mean. It just means that you're not going to get as many repetitions at the moment. But what you can do is you can use the strength to do the concentric to get up, and then use flexibility to try and come down slowly through the eccentric, the down phase, and then really try and actively use a bit more flexibility range on the way down because it's easier to push the limits because the eccentric is much easier than the concentric. Hello, sir. I love your work. Regarding working overbalance and underbalance for handstand, are your eyes always gazed between fingers the entire time? Yes, unless, well, it's based on the shoulder position. So if you're not so flexible and your shoulders are a little bit in front of your hands when you handstand, which is where you should be if you don't have the flexibility. So if I handstand here, my hands are here, I might look somewhere like here. So that's not in between my hands, it's slightly in front because my head and shoulder position is there. And then if I move like here, see how my shoulders have moved? Now my focal point has moved between my hands. And now I go back to that position when I go under balance. So depending on where my shoulders go, if it moves dramatically, so if there's quite a big move with the shoulders, my focal point will shift back and forwards because I don't want to have my shoulders over here and then looking back that way because that's going to make my legs go over towards overbalance and tend to fall over. So I will move it slightly, but as a rough indicator for most people, because you're not going to be moving like I was there, I would keep the focal position the same, whether you're going towards overbalance or whether you're in underbalance, it's roughly the same position. But it's dictated by the shoulder flexibility and where the shoulders sit, as opposed to looking somewhere different to where your shoulders are, because that will really mess you up. And also any tips on getting connection to the hip hollow body instead of hinging at the hips? Yeah, flexibility is a big thing, but also just practicing on and off the wall, creating that one segment from the shoulders to the feet when you pull from the wall. So when you do back to wall or chest to wall, just making sure that when you pull off, you're not arching or flicking with the hip. So if I'm here, if I pull from the wall and do this type of movement, so you see my body's changing position as I practice, instead of this, where now I'm going as one piece off, try and work more one segment. Same when I'm doing this way around. You don't want to be using too much hip here and then flicking like that. We want to be more shoulders forwards, and then I move on and off with the shoulder, not the hip. That hip movement is always going to make it very top heavy and you're going to be chasing the handstand. So I've done so many toe taps that I can now do a bad straddle handstand press negative. Oh, thanks to you. That's awesome. Yeah, if you get really strong through those shoulders and get them in position correctly, that'll sort of make the handstand push-ups, press handstand, even planche, like tuck planche position, way easier. And they sort of feed each other. So if you are practicing tuck planche and things like that, your handstand under balance will get stronger, your press will get stronger, and your handstand push-up will get stronger just from doing planches. How to start hollow body handstand journey. If you mean going backwards into extension, stick a box up against the wall, kick up to the feet to the wall, and then walk the feet down to the box, and then try pulling off the box. You can do it without a box as well, so you just kick up to the wall and walk your feet down a little bit. but it's all about the shoulder position. So I'm not great at it from a range point of view. I'm quite strong in the position, but because my range isn't very good. If you're very flexible into like a back bend or a bridge, then you've got more range that you need to fill with strength. So in some ways that's harder, even though you're more flexible. So if you're further away from the wall and you kick up like that, now I'm going to push my shoulders in that direction, more away from the wall, and then you can start hanging in that position and get used to pulling off and on and off the wall. And if you've got a box there, so if you have a box up against the wall, you can walk down the wall to the box and pull away. I've got a couple of videos where I demonstrate that. You should try boxing. No, not boxing for me. I don't mind, like from a fitness point of view, or like with a heavy bag or something is fun. It's just very hard on the wrists and the hands, and I don't like getting punched in the face either. That's not nice. And the trouble is as well, because with this style of training, because it's my work as well, and I teach and I demonstrate and I love over demonstrating everything. I'm quite nervous to do other things that I potentially could get injured in. So I try and only do this. Like I really like to get into jiu-jitsu and rock climbing. They're the two that I would really love to do, but I just don't have time to do them. I'm also worried about getting injured. That'll stop me in this style of training. And I've got a personality as well that I get fully into something that I train as well. So my issue would be I'd want to do that thing all the time as well, and I just don't have enough time because I spend so much time doing this, and then my other hobby is like video editing and like social media stuff and that as well. So that's why I post all the time, because I love to do that as well. So there's just no time for anything else. But yeah, like jiu-jitsu, boxing and stuff is really cool. I can hold a straddle in underbalance for 30 seconds and can do tuck reps in freestyle and handstand. What do you think my next goal should be? It all depends on you. I would go for, handstand push-ups, presses, planches, and then start mixing them all together. But it really comes down to what you want to work towards. If you can do those sort of things already, then the calisthenics is really opened up, and you can just pick what you want to do. Hi, how are you? That's a brilliant demonstration. Thank you. One thing I noticed, my underbalance was lacking no matter how many toe pull drills I did, so I incorporated finger push-ups. Yeah, that can help if you don't have the awareness there. I've never isolated them, but yeah, find out what works best for you. How much should I engage my core during a handstand? I keep getting the feeling of loose lower body when doing handstands, as if my core didn't engage enough. A lot of the time, that's because your upper body, well, not your upper body, your legs and your hips are trying to control your movement instead of your hands and your shoulders controlling the movement. I recommend that you do like hollow body holds are really good. Obviously, those line drills and stuff on the floor, chest to wall, long chest to wall handstand holds, making sure that only toes are on the wall and your body stand as one piece, and then practicing the back to wall and chest to wall balance drills. You'll find all those in my like how to handstand videos. If you practice those enough, you'll lose that connection where the lower body and the upper body like disconnect. It's not normally a weakness in the core. It's just a weakness in the line. I wouldn't think just core. You can isolate the core too much, and then you're great at doing like Pilates core exercises, but you still can't hold a handstand. So teaching your body to act as one segment is probably a better way of doing it. Just saying that your content is so useful for my handstand journey. Thanks for it. Awesome. Thank you. I can't pronounce your name, so I'm terrible with pronouncing names. But thank you very much. Impressive strength you have. Thank you. Lots of practice. I like to be like efficient, so it's not just the strength. Like I'm pretty strong, but it's more just I've become nerdy about the exercises, nerdy about handstand push-ups, presses, freestyle handstand, which makes me look stronger than I am because I can show control in positions. When kicking up, I can't really engage my glute. How can I fix that, sir? Again, I wouldn't focus on glutes. I wouldn't focus on abs. I would focus on positioning and lines. So when you're in the like your chest to wall positions, when you're pulling from the wall, try and engage the body as one segment, one piece, and not trying to isolate movements. When kicking up should really be more about the shoulders, upper back, and hands, and less about the legs. The legs should just sort of snap above you. If you do want to work glutes and that connection, I'd recommend like deadlifts and stuff, good mornings and that sort of thing. Before to start calisthenics, what was your background? So I came from weight training, just standards, bodybuilder weight training that everyone does in the gyms, bench press and that sort of thing. I've done a little bit of CrossFit. That's where I first started playing on gymnastic rings. Got my first muscle up through CrossFit, but through a strict muscle up. I wasn't doing the keeping muscle up. Yeah, so that was my background before weights. And then at 37, so 11 years ago, I saw a picture of Ido Portal in a one-arm handstand. And I was like, I want to learn that. And that's what started me down this journey. So I can do a full handstand, slow negative, and hold there for time, but can't press. Can do floating pipe push-ups. Should I go for shortened range of motion to start or stick pipe push-ups? If you mean can't press, does that mean you can't do a concentric handstand push-up? So I would do slow eccentrics and partial range, and that's both for press handstand and for handstand push-ups. Especially if you've got that, if your balance is that good, slow, very, very slow eccentrics, ideally down to a deficit, and then partial range. What was my work before this? When I lived in the UK, I was an engineer, but I was qualified as a personal trainer in 2000. So I've been personal training initially on and off, and then full time when I came to Australia. But I've been personal training for 20 years. Never trained planche, but due to training handstand every day for 1 to 4 hours for 3 months now, I can do advanced tuck planche. Yeah, that's awesome. No questions, but thanks a lot for your content, Paul. You're awesome. Thank you very much. That's appreciated. Okay, for one-arm handstand training, elevated holds, elevating one hand with a box into a handstand. A good progression for eventually practicing weight shifting with blocks. Yes and no. The downside of putting your hand up on a box, like I do give that drill to people, but it's like a secondary drill. The downside of having the hand further away, out to the side, is that you're increasing your balance window, or your base of support. So say I use this box and I put hand on here. So this could be seen as a one-arm handstand drill. So there, which is pretty good because it's teaching me to lift the hand up, lift the shoulder up in that position, and look, I can go to one-arm handstand from there. The downside of it is because it's like doing this when you do your fingertips. You could go to here and a finger, or you could take the hand out. The downside of the hand is you're reaching this arm over here. And what tends to happen when I reach over there is that I also take a leg in that direction. So it tends to make your body do this a little bit too much instead of this. So this is what we want to do in a one-arm handstand, not so much the reaching. You also find out when people go against the wall, they'll tend to reach with the opposite leg out in front. And that makes the one-arm handstand like very long instead of bringing it in. So ideally in a one-arm handstand, we want to be bringing the right leg into the torso, so down, and then I'm there in the one-arm handstand, and I'm not reaching this leg too far in that direction. So that will tend to be what happens. So I would keep one-arm handstand as much as possible, just to doing fingertip very close to the base of support. Keep it very short, really focusing on getting this position. So holding your one-arm handstand there and not being over here somewhere. Where was I? What's the difference between balancing on parets versus the ground? Which do you find harder? They're both very similar in terms of balancing, overbalance, and underbalance. The difference on powerlets and is a bit with like handstand blocks as well, is that you can pull yourself around. So I can do this type of movement to balance. So if I fall that way, I can pull myself backwards. Where with the hand, you can't really pull yourself. You more have to just rely more on the shoulders and pushing through the fingers. There's less pull-in type movement. But in terms of the two-arm balance, you're basically just still training overbalance and underbalance. And I would still do the same drills where you learn to pull from the wall, back to wall, learn to pull from the wall, chest to wall. Again, I've got a couple of videos on how to do it on powerlets, but exactly the same techniques, basically, in terms of focusing on strengthening underbalance and overbalance, not necessarily focusing on what the hands and the fingers are doing. They'll look after themselves if you just practice the thing. So don't become too much about, what is happening. So like trying to explain to someone how you press handstand is so hard to understand what muscles you're working, and you'll never figure it out until you can actually do it, and you can learn to do it from doing the drills. Paul, I'm able to hold 90-second degree hold or bent arm planche for 25 seconds. That's awesome. Sometimes instead of holding it though, I try to press straight up into handstand and I fail. But I've noticed it's easier with powerlets and with supinated hands. Could you explain the difference in hand position a little? Yeah, so basically with the powerlets will allow you to take your shoulders further past your hands without closing down on the wrist so much. So most people will be able to planche further, whether it's bent arm or straight arm on powerlets, because the shoulders can just go further. So when you're especially when you go up to handstand from there, you also have clearance. So your head and shoulders are higher off the floor, so you can scoop the head down. So what I'd play with if you're trying to go up from there is close the position. So if you can hold a straight position, you could do like eccentric, so handstand eccentric down to a bent arm planche position, so like 90-degree handstand push up. And then if you want to start playing with going up, just close the body, especially if you elevate up higher. So obviously you could use like P bars like that type of height, but I'd raise the bars up if you've got normal powerlets, and then just go more of a tucked position. I've got videos on 90-degree handstand push-ups, but if you're using bars like this, I would probably elevate them even higher. I probably won't be able to get up without warming this up. I haven't really warmed my shoulders up or handstand push-up up enough to do 90 degrees. But if you go bent arm planche like here and have your legs in that position and then push up that way, and you can use a little bit of momentum as well. You could even raise these up a touch. I will raise them up onto weight plates. An external rotation will put you in a stronger position as well. Internal rotation is just not a strong position for pushing. External rotation opens the chest and shoulders, makes it much easier to push. Where was he? Well, I pronounce it Thibaut. Thibaut, hey buddy, apologies. My reading and pronunciation, I can't even say that word, is not very good. I'm dyslexic. Explaining you started calisthenics around 40, 45 years old. Before that, what was your job? Yeah, so I started calisthenics at 37, but I was personal training way before that. But when I was personal training, I was doing corrective exercise and standard weight training. So just like functional exercise and that type of thing. I studied with Paul Chek, so I'm a Chek practitioner, if anyone knows what that means. So I specialize in corrective exercise, functional movement, holistic coaching, that type of thing. So I was doing a lot of injuries. It's quite famous for that style of training with surfers. So I was doing all that type of thing. I actually opened a personal training studio that was focused on corrective exercise. But then I found this style of training, and just because I loved it so much, I then just swapped over slowly and just started only training clients for this. I can do a handstand on ground, but can't on parallels. Yeah, normally it's just what you train on. So I'd recommend over time that you start including like handstand blocks, boxes, canes, parallettes, high parallel bars, just because then it gives you more variability in your training. So you might find that, if your wrists start to get sore on the floor and in a hand position there, suddenly going into more of a neutral grip with the wrist will make it much more comfortable to handstand. How do I manage calluses? I just leave them. I don't touch them. My hands are pretty calloused up. I don't touch them. I do get sometimes when I was using handstand blocks a lot for one arm handstand, the edges of my fingers were getting really sore off the wooden blocks, but from the sharp edges. But apart from that, no, I don't do anything with calluses. I leave them. I don't touch them. I have to be careful if I do lots of bar work where there's a knurled bar or something. I will start to rip the calluses, and then I'll tape up or use straps because I just don't want to rip the calluses. Your super strict low bar muscle up is quite impressive. I don't see many people doing that, even the calisthenics big names. What got you into that? I think just doing bar, I learned mainly through the false grip bar muscle up, and then started playing on the bar stuff as well in that front lever position. It's just a movement I enjoy doing. And also training where you don't have the clearance. Like if you don't have high ceilings, with the studio where I first started training this style of training, my gym I had was like this garage where the ceiling isn't that high. So I was limited on muscle ups. So I'll be pulling from a lower position. And just play with it there. Thank you. Can you make a video about medial epicondylitis? No, because I don't know anything about it. No. No, I'd definitely not be an expert on that. Should I start doing weighted handstand wall drills? No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't use weighted handstand drills. Very, very occasionally, I'll use ankle weights with people. I hurt my shoulder using a weight vest for handstand push-ups, deficit handstand push-ups, and got no benefit from using it. It actually knocked me back quite a bit. So I'm not a big fan of using weighted vests and stuff. I've been put off by those. So I think there's enough progressions and intensity and progressions you can make with other handstand variations. Best exercise for pancake fold. I've got a video where I go through all those ones, but just sitting in the straddle pancake as much as possible. In both passive positions where you're sitting there for long amounts of time, and then straddle good mornings. So just open and closing the position. You just do those two things every day in some way, and your pancake will open up. Hope the channel is a killer for you. Thank you, John. Hope you're well, buddy. Hello. Hey, how are you? John, with shoulder mobility, how much a day do you really get some movement? Still getting the banana, even with heaps of strength and mobility work. It's tricky. Like my shoulder mobility. So if, say, I'm teaching a certain skill or in a certain situation where I'm showing someone an exercise, maybe if they've got really good shoulder mobility, they'll look at my shoulder mobility and think there's no way I could put my hands above my head because I just don't have enough flexibility. But what I've done is through the handstand conditioning is that I've given myself really good shoulder mobility for handstands, for a straight handstand. But for like a back bridge or something, my shoulder mobility is terrible. But the main thing is, so I was thoracic rolling, thoracic extensions nearly on a daily basis when I was really trying to open it up. Hanging and stuff like that would just be like the norm. I would just do that when I'm teaching and stuff. So I'm going to be hanging most days. And then the big one was trying to open up from like handstand push-ups, presses and stuff to push out of your handstand. So a lot of people in their handstand, especially the amount of handstands that you've done, that you would your position of strength, so the way you hold your handstand, is locking your shoulder as opposed to opening the shoulder in a handstand. So what I mean by that is that a lot of people will, especially if they do thousands of repetitions of something, we teach our body that we're strong in a certain position. It's like a boxer. So if you train a boxer and they're in this position all the time, they might have the best mobility in the world. But when you put the boxer in a handstand, even though they've got really good shoulder mobility, their position of strength has been taught to be in this position. So suddenly they can't put their hands above their head. Even if you tested them, they have really good flexibility. So they've taught their body to stay in that position because that's their safety. So you've probably just done that for your handstands as well, where this is your handstand hold is like this. So then it doesn't matter how much you try and open it up, your body doesn't allow you. So it's trying to trick your body into going into a straighter position and still maintaining it for your straddle, for your tuck, for your handstand push-ups, for your presses. So it's trying to like re-educate your body, which can be way harder to do it, as opposed to just thinking it's mobility. So it's a bit more tricky to try and open it up, but it's like being conscious on every repetition when you do all of your movements, that you open it back up again, and then also have a look at all the other things you're doing. Are you teaching that position of strength to override everything else? So it's a tricky one to really open up on. What's the best strength exercise for shoulder? It depends what your weakness is, but I would go with a closed chain push-in movement. So if you're very new, push-ups. Once you get push-ups very good, going into dips. Once dips are very good, going into pike push-ups. Once pike push-ups are very strong, harder variations of pike push-ups, and then into handstand push-ups. They're the variations that I would use. Dips are fantastic. As long as you get your body, your torso in the right position. A dip is, I'd always pick that over like a bench press or something like that. I don't know if I've missed any. How do you train for false grip? So flexibility, false grip rows. False grip rows are really good. And then false grip chin-ups. And then practicing, if it's for muscle up, then practicing loads of transitions with tiptoes on the floor. So really understanding how to get in and out of false grip. But flexibility with straight arms in a false grip is really challenging. There's still, I struggle with that still because I don't do enough flexibility in that position. So I can do multiple muscle ups, like strict muscle ups, if I don't straighten the arms all the way. As soon as I straighten the arms all the way, I'm going to lose my false grip a little bit. It means that I will only get like 2 muscle ups or 3 muscle ups. But if I stay slightly bent in the arm, I can, do 5 or 6 strict muscle ups, no problem. But as soon as I go straighter and I lose the false grip, so for me, that's more flexibility and conditioning of that. But a good way to start with it is false grip rows without losing the false grip, turning in and out. Again, if you look at my muscle up videos that I've got on YouTube, I go through all the false grip stuff on there. Thanks for the interaction. Much appreciated from the guru you are for us. Thank you. Planning on some travel retreats at some point. Not at the moment. It's just hard with the family and stuff. I will be going to the UK sometime next year, probably every couple of years. I'm trying to go to the UK to visit family. And because we've got a big family, like the cost of travel and the time allocation and stuff, it sort of always goes to the UK. But potentially I'll do some stuff closer to Perth or closer to Australia. At the moment, nothing planned apart from the UK trips. Where were we? Sondre Berg working on his one-arm handstand push-up, weighted at this stage. Is it something you would target as well? No, it's too, like for me, a one-arm handstand push-up is just too specific. I don't think, it's like even like a one-arm handstand. A one-arm handstand, you'd think would be a great, from a business point of view, would be a great marketing thing because it's seen as the real pointy end of handstand balance. But I probably get my least amount of business and interaction on social media and stuff from a business point of view from one arm handstands. It's too like pointy end. And if you look at something like a one arm handstand push up, it's a really cool, impressive Instagram feat or something, or circus trick, more than it is a useful tool. So it's not something that I would go for, but it's very, very impressive. And because no one else is doing it, so that's pretty. It's a cool thing. But I'll watch him do it, but I won't be training for it. Thanks for your kick up tips. Was the best I've seen many videos, but no one talks about keeping the base stable and shoulder on wrists. Now my kick ups. Success at 8 out of 10. That's awesome. One arm hangs. I do a little bit of one arm hanging. I mainly just, again, because I don't do enough of it to really play with it. I do some brachiation occasionally. It's something I want to get more into. I was actually watching bouldering on YouTube last night, and I would love to do a bit more of that, which is obviously one arm hangs and moving around is really cool. I don't personally practice it that much, but I want to. I want to do more hanging variations. I think it'll be really good for my shoulders. Do I incorporate weighted calisthenics, weighted dips? No, I don't. Not at the moment. Occasionally, I'll do weighted chin-ups. I think they're very, very good, especially if you want to get a really high pull. My pull-up is very mediocre, to say the least. I can't pull very high. My flexibility in my pecs and my lats don't allow me pull that high, and my strength in that range isn't great. I can get away with bar muscle ups, but I have to use a little bit of a swing and a kip to get up. So it's something I would like to improve, but nothing I'm working on at the moment. I'm not a big fan of doing weighted dips. I'd rather do just handstand push-up variations. Go to 90-degree handstand push-ups, dead presses, and stuff like that for progressions on that. But not saying it's wrong. Dips and pull-ups weighted is cool. Hi, Paul. My question is, when I film my handstand from the back, I see from side to side imbalances in straight to straddle. Do you know exercises to correct this? So I would say it's probably just because you're at the moment your handstand balance is not strong enough to hide the imbalances. So over time, as you get stronger and stronger in your handstand, your imbalances will slowly disappear. So if you look right back, I'll find a picture. I think there's a picture up on my website on my story page, showing my handstand when I started, what it looked like. You'll notice I've got a funny right ankle that I rolled coming off my mountain bike when I was like 16 or something. So when I walk, it turns in a little bit my leg. When in my handstands, when I was started, my legs were like bowed, and then my ankle is off to one side. You can see it hanging there, and then the hip is a little bit twisted as well. So I don't think I've corrected that. I think it's still the same, but over time, because my handstands got much better, it's hidden the imperfections because it's not so much of a 1 rep max anymore. Same as if I do a 1 rep max deadlift or squat, you'll see my body twisting and moving out of position just because it's at its max, it's struggling, it's got nowhere to go. But when we become better at something, we hide those imbalances more. So unless you've got pain or discomfort caused by any imbalances, I wouldn't necessarily worry about them. I would just keep training the progressions, get better and better at the thing, and then that should slowly disappear. Have I read Convict Conditioning? No, I'm not a big reader. I'm not great at reading, so I don't spend much time reading. I haven't read that one. So back to wall drills with more open shoulders. I mean, I would practice just trying to open up into a taller position whenever you do anything. So whenever you do a handstand movement, think your home position you have to return to is pushed taller. So don't necessarily think open shoulders, just think reaching up with the toes, whatever that movement is. And you could go specifics against the wall, both chest to wall and back to wall, and just try and open up as much as possible. It's hard to say without assessing more things. I can't balance with the straight handstand. So just go back to all chest to wall balance drills. Do lots of repetitions of those. Been stuck trying to nail a handstand hold for years. Can a handstand walk for 60 meters unbroken, but can't stay still for more than 15 seconds. Just found your 5-step video. I think you might have sold it for me. Awesome. Yeah. Just like keep it. Handstand balance is really, really simple. It just needs, 1 or 2 drills, something for overbalance, something for underbalance, and do repetitions of it. So if you're like, I take it you're training CrossFit by the name and the handstand walking. So just use, when you warm up before any CrossFit WOD, just do some basic handstand drills as part of your warm up. That's going to work your flexibility and that will improve your handstand because you're training so often. And if you're in the gym a lot, that repetition of just doing 10, 15 minutes of handstands will make a massive difference. I think that's much better to do that before you train than doing, an hour handstand session once a week or something like that. I do 10 to 15 minutes as a warm up before you do your strength work, your CrossFit WODs, whatever you do. How can I achieve the 90-degree hold? So you mean the bent arm planche position? So 90 degrees? Is that what you mean by 90-degree hold? I'm assuming you mean that. So you could go at it from, it depends where your strength is. So if you have good strength at the moment, you could go bent arm planche. If you don't have great strength, just create more space. Yeah, so the easiest way to do it would be to use parallels or to raise the hands up on something like a box or something. Actually, let me show you on. So they can be done on these parallels or yoga blocks. I'll show you on this because it will exaggerate it even more. So if I get these bars and I turn them out, so if I externally rotate, so if you externally rotate the hands, watch what happens to the elbows. See the elbows come out in. If I internally rotate, so if I do this, the elbows come out. Like this is not a strong position. This is a strong position. So if I do that and have these quite close together, now my elbows come into my hips. So I can find my hips in that position and I can go into that position like that. So if you look at it from the side, I'm there. I can even exaggerate it even more, put them like that. So elbows into hip, and I'm in that position. And there's my 90-degree hold. But it's a nice, easy position because I'm staying tucked and rounded in my back. So if you've got clearance off the floor, it allows you to round over. So it's easier to get into that position. Now, it's not to open up from there. It needs a little bit more flexibility. But think of it, you're opening up the head and the legs at the same time. So you go into extension to create one segment, but it's quite arched. And then you're balanced in the middle. So it's a bit like a peacock position in yoga. So just opening up like that. So that's the easiest way to do it. And then bent arm planche is the same, but your arms are now more to the side of your torso. So you still have friction, but you're not creating a shelf. So that's the same, but it's harder. So I can do the same thing, like bent arm planche like that, but it's way harder. The 90-degree hold on the floor in that elbow lever-like position, for most people that do some sort of training, shouldn't take that long. That should be a pretty simple skill if you just set it up correctly. How would you recommend incorporating the underbalance handstand hold into handstand push-up training? I currently have progressions for wall-assisted handstand push-up and pike push-ups, but would like to integrate this too. So I would practice as part of your warm-up before you go into your handstand push-ups. I would practice some freestanding handstand push-up work. So I'd always include that before you do any handstand push-up work, even if it's just 5 to 10 minutes. And I would do the toe pull drill. So sliding the shoulders forwards with the toes coming down the wall, which is actually the start of your chest to wall handstand push-up as well. So if you're doing wall-assisted handstand push-ups, that's where you do the underbalance, pull from the wall first before you go into the handstand push-up. So if I'm doing just the balance section first, I would practice that by itself. So there, shoulders come forwards, toes slide down, go to underbalance, toes come off the wall, open the shoulder up. John, this is also good for you, just practicing that for your shoulders. like that, chest to wall position, and then opening up and back again. And then if you're doing handstand push-ups, exactly the same. You could come to here, balance for a second, then put the toes down, then go through your chest to wall, handstand push-up. You could do the same back to wall, just taking the shoulders forwards. But just think you're trying to hold in that sweet spot with slight underbalance, toes floating off the wall. Anything about improving back bend? My back bend's terrible, but the way I'd improve it is putting the box against the wall, kick up to the wall, and then walk your feet down to the box. So feet elevated, so you're focusing on the upper back shoulders, making sure the shoulders stay on top of the hands when you're in that position. Again, I've got it in my couple of videos that I put out recently on mobility, opening the shoulders up. I've covered that a few times. So, but I don't have a box available at the moment. I've got lots of junk from all the summer stuff over there, and the box is underneath that at the moment. But yeah, that's how I would train it. Kick up to the wall, walk your feet down to the box, make sure the shoulders stay on top of the hands and push away. Heel pulls and toe pulls on P-bars too, or doing that on floor translate well. Yeah, I'd do both. So, and think of it as you're just training overbalance and underbalance. So if I'm here, so I could do pulling from the wall here. So pulling the heels off is going to train my overbalance. So I'm a little bit more pulling myself around with this on the bars, but it's the same idea. I want to be practicing that way, and then exactly the same the other way. So going up that way for your toe pull, underbalance. So there, shoulders come forwards till the toes come off, and then push up to your handstand and back again. Appreciate you so much, man. Thank you. Yeah, love that drill. I struggle keeping the body in one part when I get tired. Yeah, look, that's like, that's the go-to drill that I probably give everybody, whether they're working, starting their one-arm handstand journey, they're starting handstands, whatever it is, that chest to wall underbalance drill. There's obviously a prerequisite before you get to it. You need to be able to go into that position. You need to be able to come pull away from the wall with confidence. But if you can really master that, handstand push-ups, presses, handstand balance, and that just all slot into place. That's like a really super important drill. I think I've caught up, guys. I've answered all the questions. We're at 52 minutes. So I plan to stay on for an hour. So if there's any other questions, shout as well if I've missed any. I don't know if I don't think I did. Rose is still here. Have a set for pike push-ups. How many a session? It depends what else you're doing. Like if your pike push-ups are your working sets, I do a 5x5. Keep it really simple. So 5 sets of 5 reps, as intense as possible. That's what if you want to have a look, like when you're training something like handstand push-ups or presses, you want to have that working sets where you're doing the repetitions that are going to make you stronger. And then you also want to do the balance work around it. So, have a warm up, if pike push-ups are your main working sets, do the working sets. And you could also superset in the working sets. If you've got the ability to do it like a eccentric, ideally a deficit eccentric, so 1 repetition, and then superset the working reps, and then rest and then go again. That type of thing would work really well. If not, to do that separately. So do some slow eccentrics freestanding. Because the downside of pipe push-ups, like, they're great for strength, but they hinge through the hip. So, and our handstand push-up is all about keeping the shoulder to feet a straight line. So I prefer to give people pipe push-ups for the reps to get strong, but also have something in there to really teach that shoulder to feet being one piece. So when your body's moving like this, when you do your handstand push-ups, think like, some monster probably does it the best, keeping that segment shoulder to feet one piece the whole time. Any requests for videos, guys? I'm putting one out most days. I'm putting a video out. Now, the videos that I put out, so I get this question asked a lot. So the videos I put out daily are normally what I'm training. So if I put a handstand push-up video out, it's because I trained handstand push-up that day. If I put a press or a planche out, then I've trained presses and planches that day. And I normally just alternate. So one day I do handstand push-ups, one day I do presses or planches, so straight arm, bent arm, and I normally just alternate that. Some days I won't do one of those, and I'll do like muscle ups or more mobility work or something. But I'll tend to always do something around the straight arm and bent arm and just alternate the days, and that's why I do the videos. How often do you hold live stream Q&As? I normally do them once, or the goal is to do them once a week. I've dropped off a little bit recently, just sort of juggling everything and with clients and stuff. But the goal is to do them once a week. Ideally, I'd try and mix the times up, but I have to juggle it around the kids and stuff as well. So it's nice and quiet at home at the moment. And it's also because they're still building around me, and I like to train in the garage with the garage door up. If there's like construction going on across the road and it's really noisy, I can't do it. So at the moment, I try and do once a week on a Thursday or Friday, this sort of time. Yeah, that's the goal, but I just can't guarantee it. I tried to start planning them, but it didn't work. So I'm sort of doing them ad hoc at the moment. But I do have, if you're a YouTube member or use my app, I have the Discord now. So that's sort of like a bonus for that, where you can ask questions on there, and I try and get back to that like on the day. So that's one way of definitely getting questions to me and sending videos and stuff. Anything we can do to grow the channel? Just put, well, like, I'm just doing as much content as I can, and obviously, anything like sharing. I think it'll just gradually grow as it is. I think it's coming on strong now. I just want to make sure that as it grows, that I just keep, everyone who's wants to keep growing with the handstands and training, and keep it very dedicated to this and not go too far away from what I love. I don't want to start doing, eating funny food, and you see some people will go crazy on social media and YouTube and stuff because they've gone away from the thing they enjoy. I love doing this. I love creating content like this. So if it's gradually growing like this as it is, I prefer it that way, as long as the people that are watching stay the same. But thank you for helping as well. Or wanting to help. That's awesome. Injury prevention. I've been on and off with solid practice due to fragile wrists. Yeah, my wrist is a big one. I'm lucky because I'm on my wrists all day long, on and off, and I don't do, I do work on my computer, but I'm still training way more and have done for the last few years, and slowly increase that. So my body's got more used to it. Definitely try mixing it up. So, using P-bars, using blocks, using different floor surfaces. Make sure that your rest of your mobility is good from the shoulders, from the upper back, hips and stuff like that. So you're not compensating too much through the wrists. And then just whenever your wrists are sore, do something else that helps your training. So work on hip mobility, work on spinal mobility. Sometimes, like if your body doesn't like handstands, you can do the pull-in movements. So normally you can find something to work on, but those sort of things can be frustrating. Sounds great. Thank you for answering my question. Thank you. Never see me do a puppy press. I've done quite a few. I often put puppy presses and that sort of thing on my shorts or on my Instagram, because I don't really use that as a training tool, in terms of progressions towards press handstand. But the puppy press is a good. I'll often put that in like when I'm teaching, especially in like a yoga class or something. If I'm teaching handstands or doing workshops, the easiest way to do a puppy press is to start in your normal press position. This is what I like to teach it. So you've got lots of weight on your hands, upper back, shoulders, your tippy toes, and then I just walk around the outside and then lift one leg up, and then this leg that's up, I'm reaching up with it, and then that takes me up to the handstand. And if someone struggles with that, the point where they're going to here, so this right foot, I would just stick a yoga block or something underneath it, which normally helps them to get up, or I'll just spot them into the position. But it can be a useful movement to feel that transfer of weight. But there, now you've seen me do a puppy press. Balance, I can't balance. Okay, so just practice back to wall, chest to wall, 4 or 5 times a week. Practicing those pulling on and off the wall, under balance and over balance. That's the balance is or learning to freestand, a handstand is very, very simple, but it needs lots of practice. So I think everyone can balance a handstand. They've just got to practice enough. And that's as simple as that. So it's not simple in terms of how much work is needed, but it's simplistic in terms of the way you can do it. You just need to practice over balance and under balance, chest to wall and back to wall. If you don't know what I'm talking about and doesn't make any sense, just search on my videos for beginner handstands, and I've got quite a few videos on there that show it, or how to balance a handstand. And that should answer your questions. Guys, I'm going to switch off. It's been an hour and 2 minutes. If you're watching the recording, stick any questions down in the comments. I try and get back to the questions on YouTube. It can be challenging sometimes if they all come in at once. So I miss some for sure. But keep reaching out if you do have any questions, or through the website. Like I say, if you're a YouTube member, you can get access to the Discord now and ask questions on there. If you'd like to support me, the app is the best way to do it, or just become a member, or just share my YouTube, subscribe, that sort of thing, comment on my videos. That definitely helps growing it. And I'm going to try and come on again next week. It's school holidays here in Australia for the next 2 weeks, so I can't guarantee what time and when, but that will be the plan, to try and come on next Friday. I might put a post up. If I know I'm going to do it, I'll put a post up in the community post with questions, and just say sort of what time I'm planning to do it. Okay, thanks, guys. It's been fun. I will speak to you soon. I'll let Rosie say bye. Any good places to train in Nottingham? No, I don't know Nottingham, no. I know there's Handstand Movement I think she's in Manchester, which is not that close to Nottingham. No, I don't know off the top of my head. I'm sure there'll be some people on Instagram in Nottingham ways. I'll let you know if I can think of anyone. Okay, I'm off. Thanks, guys. Speak to you soon.